So right now, the whole internet seems to be talking about that Solo movie and how it's somewhere between here and there. I'm not going to because I haven't seen the thing. I've got a toddler and not a lot of money, so it's hard to get out of the house because, well, toddlers don't like for you to have fun. But the buzz did get me thinking about the classic Star Wars movie. One of my favorite things about the fourth Star Wars movie is the cast of characters. They're all instinctively relatable. Most people can relate to at least one of the characters. Even the group's infighting often has a familiar feel to it. Why is this the case? Well, because it's a well-written story, unlike certain other entries in the franchise. But specifically, I think the writers accomplished this because the main characters demonstrate a diversity in personality that maps pretty well onto one of the more commonly used personality theories in psychology. Let me elaborate. Personality just refers to those individual differences that remain fairly stable over time. This, I think, is pretty intuitive. Most of us who have experience in dealing with people can tell that different individuals have different reactions to the same event, or take different approaches to solving the same problem. But while this is something that most of us know is there, how do we find it? There are actually a number of methods for measuring personality, and I'm not even going to pretend to be familiar with all of them. The model that I am going to look at today is a very well-researched one that has wooed many a researcher and mental health professional. That is the Ocean model. This is an acronym for a 5-factor model that broadly outlines human personality. These factors are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Openness, or openness to experience, is the dimension of personality that measures the extent to which you seek new experiences. Openness, like the other 4 dimensions of the Ocean model, is normally distributed, with the majority of people scoring inside 2 standard deviations from the... Okay, hold up. So, a normal distribution looks like this. If you made a graph of the results of a group of people testing for this dimension, where low to high openness is going horizontally, and the number of people with a certain result is going vertically, most people would be near the middle of the graph, with neither exceptionally high or exceptionally low levels of openness. But a smaller percentage of people will be on the ends of the graph, with really high or really low levels of openness. People on the higher end of openness will often display greater intellectual curiosity, greater sensation seeking, and they'll tend to be more attentive to their inner emotional states. People who have exceptionally low levels of openness, as you might have guessed, are more conventional and hesitant to try new things. Luke Skywalker, I believe, is an example of a person with a high level of openness. He's curious and not content to stay in his everyday home and his everyday life. He's cognitively open to the idea of an invisible magic force that he heard from a random old man living in a cave, an idea that a person with less openness might not entertain. And like real-life people with high openness, Luke has a propensity for outside-of-the-box solutions to problems and the confidence to carry them out, even if they are ill-advised at times. The C stands for conscientiousness. This dimension measures the extent to which a person is task-oriented, organized, and cautious. As you can expect, people on the higher end of conscientiousness tend to be planners. They have above average impulse control and are better at delaying gratification. So a person with high conscientiousness would have an advantage in situations requiring prior preparation, structured thinking, and goal-oriented behavior, but may have issues in situations that demand spontaneity or unanticipated events. People with lower conscientiousness are more likely to be laid back and not as driven. It is also at the lower levels of conscientiousness where we start to see more radically unconventional or even criminal behavior. Here I think we have the monarch, Princess Leia. The defining feature of her character is her principle and her authority. She believes in the rebellion, and because she believes in it, she is fully dedicated to ensuring its survival. Like people with high levels of conscientiousness, she also has a detailed vision of what should be done, and is not afraid to tell you if she doesn't think you're doing it. She even takes time to tell Darth Vader what a bad person he is while she's in custody. Also, like people on the high end of conscientiousness, she's all business, and is not a fan of half-baked plans. E is probably the most well-known dimension, extroversion. There are actually several models of what constitutes extroversion and introversion, and is a topic that should be probably covered in a video of its own. But extroversion in the ocean model looks at your preference for socializing and being energized by interacting with people, versus your preference for solitary activities and being energized in one's own introvert bubble. High extroversion is a good fit for Han Solo, bearing in mind that extroversion means a cognitive preference for social interaction, not necessarily pro-social interaction. Throughout his various depictions in the Star Wars universe, Han Solo seems to know someone in every corner of the galaxy. He has interacted with so many people, he sometimes loses track of who he's conned in the past. He's energetic, charming when he needs to be, and assertive, all traits he shares with real-life high-end extrovert. A is for agreeableness. This is a measure of how much cooperation, warmth, kindness, and compassion people demonstrate. Highly agreeable people tend to be motivated by creating and maintaining harmony between individuals and in society. At both the high and low ends of agreeableness, there is some behavioral overlap with the measure of conscientiousness. Just like highly conscientious people, people who score high in agreeableness are very unlikely to be wanton rule breakers. But the difference is the motivation. For the conscientious, conformity is done for the sake of the rules themselves to maintain order. For the agreeable, conforming is done for the sake of not offending people and maintaining harmony. The famous compliment sandwich was probably the invention of a highly agreeable person. A textbook example of high agreeableness from the Star Wars universe is R2-D2. He is trustworthy, loyal to his friends, and is no fan of conflict. Lastly, there's N for neuroticism. The concept of neuroticism is as old as the field of psychology, and like extroversion has had various definitions over the years. In this context, it refers to a person's tendency to experience negative emotions. People with high neuroticism are more likely than the general population to be mad, sad, and anxious when reacting to stressors. Now, it may seem that the picture of neuroticism is very negative, and the truth is much of the literature on this dimension has to do with potential problems that people who score high on neuroticism can have. However, a 2006 study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that highly neurotic individuals performed better than their quote-unquote more stable counterparts in very busy work environments. As you might have guessed, I have paired neuroticism with the perpetually worried C-3PO. C-3PO's intense reactions to his environment put him in the position of having a wealth of information about the group's activities, although it is often presented from an anxious, here's why we're all gonna die perspective. Also, like individuals in this galaxy with high neuroticism, C-3PO is the least likely to give an unrealistically positive evaluation of a course of action. And while this quality doesn't usually make one popular, being more risk-averse is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when you don't live in a universe of improbable happy endings. So there you have it, 5 basic dimensions of human personality on the 5 Star Wars characters. Now, before I close out, there are 2 disclaimers I want to make. First, the way the Big Five are portrayed in this video may suggest that they are distinct personality types, but this isn't true. There are theories that divide human personality into types, but that's for another video. The 5 dimensions are, for lack of a better term, the ingredients of a personality. These 5 characters, I think, show notable extremes of these dimensions, but like in real life, the characters are each complex and unique combinations of all these traits. If Han Solo had the same amount of extroversion, but lower openness, he might be hosting dinner parties instead of out in the galaxy helping the rebellion. And if C-3PO had the same level of neuroticism, but lower agreeableness and conscientiousness, well, we'd be looking at a very different movie. The last and most important point is, no one has to start a Wookiee riot. I didn't forget about Chewbacca. I just honestly didn't feel like I had a good enough sense of his personality to place him on any of these spectra. I'd be interested to see what you all thought. Leave a comment saying where you would put Chewbacca on the ocean model. Or comment where you would put yourself if you'd like. Or you could speculate wildly about who will star in the next Star Wars story film. You do you, YouTube. Thanks for watching.